Life had settled into a predictable rhythm, and I liked it that way. Stability was something I had always valued. My name is Daniel, and at 38, I had built a comfortable life with my wife, Emily. We had been married for 12 years, long enough to know each other's quirks, habits, and the little routines that made up our day-to-day lives. She worked as an event planner, always bustling with schedules, meetings, and last-minute venue changes, while I ran my own small business from home. It worked well. She was the social one, I preferred the quiet. We lived in a cozy house in the suburbs, the kind with well-manicured lawns and neighbors who waved but never pried too much. Our marriage wasn't perfect, no marriage is, but it was solid. Or at least, I thought it was. The first sign that something was off came on a regular Wednesday evening. Emily had just returned from work, kicking off her heels in the hallway like she always did. She looked beautiful, as always, with her long auburn hair tied up in a messy bun, her usual professional attire replaced with an oversized sweatshirt and leggings. "Busy day?" I asked, closing my laptop. "Exhausting," she sighed, rolling her shoulders. "We had a client change their entire wedding theme last minute. You'd think people would plan these things better." I chuckled. "You love the chaos, don't lie." She smirked and kissed my cheek before heading into the kitchen. That was our routine: small talk, casual affection, then dinner together. But that night, something felt different. Subtle. Almost unnoticeable. But different. Emily had always been attached to her phone, but lately, it never seemed to leave her hand. Even as we ate, her fingers hovered over the screen, her attention split between our conversation and whatever was lighting up her notifications. I didn't think much of it at first. But then, I noticed something strange. When she got a text, she glanced at it quickly and tilted her phone away before locking the screen. The first time, I ignored it. The second time, I felt a small knot tighten in my chest. By the third time, when she excused herself to the bathroom, taking her phone with her, it had my full attention. A ridiculous thought crossed my mind, but I pushed it away. This was Emily. My wife. The woman I trusted more than anyone. Still, something in my gut nagged at me. Later that night, as she got ready for bed, I noticed another small detail. Emily always tossed her clothes in the laundry hamper at the end of the day, but this time, she carefully folded her blouse and tucked it into the closet instead. Like she planned to wear it again. I sat on the edge of our bed, watching her in the reflection of our vanity mirror. She caught my gaze and smiled, but something about it felt forced. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," I lied. I should have let it go. I should have ignored it, told myself I was overthinking. But a part of me knew that something had changed. I just didn't know yet how much. The next few days, I tried to push aside the unease that had settled in my chest. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe Emily was just stressed from work. But once you notice something is off, you start seeing every little detail, every shift in behavior, every unanswered question. And suddenly, everything felt wrong. It started with small things. Emily's phone, which used to sit on the nightstand charging overnight, was now always face down, as if she didn't want me to see any notifications. She started staying late at work more often, even on nights when she didn't have any events to manage. And then there were the phone calls. Twice, I saw her step onto the back patio in the middle of the night, speaking in hushed tones. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off. "It's just a friend from work," she'd say. Stressed about a big event. I'm helping her through it. But who calls a colleague at midnight? By the end of the second week, the gut feeling I had turned into something stronger: an obsession. I told myself I wasn't the kind of guy who snoops through his wife's things, but one night, when she was in the shower, I gave in. I picked up her phone. Locked. She had never locked it before. I knew her passcode, at least, I thought I did. I tried the one she had always used. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. My heart sank. She had changed it. I put the phone down quickly as I heard the water shut off. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, my mind racing. Why would she change her password? The only reason someone does that is if they have something to hide. I needed proof. The next morning, I came up with a plan. I wouldn't confront her until I had something solid. Until I had the truth. Emily had a work meeting scheduled downtown that afternoon. She left in a hurry, barely giving me a kiss goodbye. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys and followed. I kept my distance, making sure she wouldn't see me. I wasn't even sure what I expected to find. Maybe she really was just going to work. Maybe I was making a fool of myself. But then, she drove past her office building. And kept going. I gripped the steering wheel, my pulse hammering in my ears. She drove into the city, making turns like she knew exactly where she was going. No hesitation. No checking her GPS. Then she pulled into a small, boutique hotel parking lot. I watched as she parked her car, took one last look in the mirror, and fixed her hair. She was wearing the same blouse she had neatly folded away in the closet 3 nights ago. She got out, smoothed her skirt, and walked inside. My mouth went dry. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe it was work-related. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I knew before I even saw him. I knew before he pulled up in a sleek black Audi, stepped out, and walked through the same doors my wife had just entered. Tall. Well-dressed. Confident. Someone I didn't recognize. And I hated him instantly. For a few minutes, I just sat there, frozen. My brain couldn't fully process what I had just seen. Then, something inside me snapped. I needed proof. I got out of the car, walking towards the hotel like a man possessed. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp, calculating my next move. Inside, the lobby was small, with a single receptionist sitting behind the desk. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Excuse me," I said. "I think my wife just checked in, but I forgot which room she booked." The receptionist barely glanced up. "Name?" I hesitated. "Emily Carter." She frowned at her screen. "Sorry, sir, but I can't give out guest information." "Of course." I swallowed my frustration and glanced around. A hallway led deeper into the hotel. The elevator was just past it. I walked away before she could stop me. My heart pounded as I stood by the elevator, watching the numbers light up. It stopped on the 4th floor. I took the stairs, moving quickly, my breath shallow. When I reached the 4th floor, I hesitated. The hallway was empty, lined with numbered doors. And then, I heard it. Muffled laughter. A woman's voice. Emily's voice. Coming from room 412. My entire body went cold. I stepped closer. The door wasn't fully closed. It was cracked open just enough. And that's when I saw them. Emily. Sitting on the edge of the bed, her blouse slightly unbuttoned. Her hands on his chest. And him, standing in front of her, leaning in, his hands brushing through her hair. My vision blurred. My breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. I had my proof. I didn't remember walking away. I didn't remember leaving the hotel or getting back into my car. But suddenly, I was driving. Hands clenched around the steering wheel. Eyes staring blankly at the road ahead. Everything felt surreal. Like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Emily. My Emily. The woman I had spent 12 years loving. The woman I had trusted more than anyone. She was cheating on me. And now, I had to decide what came next. I don't remember driving home. The last thing I recalled was walking out of that hotel, my chest feeling like it was caving in. I must have been on autopilot, because the next thing I knew, I was pulling into my driveway, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Emily was cheating on me. I repeated the words in my head, over and over, but they still didn't feel real. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the house we had built together. The place where we had spent years making memories. The same house where, just last week, she had kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash something. But all I did was sit there, suffocating in my own silence. When I finally stepped out, my legs felt shaky, like they didn't belong to me. I walked inside, the familiar scent of our home washing over me, lavender and vanilla, Emily's favorite candles. It made me sick. I walked straight to our bedroom, pulled open the closet, and yanked out the blouse she had been wearing at the hotel. I held it in my hands, staring at the fabric like it had the answers I needed. Why? Why had she done this? I sat on the edge of the bed, the blouse clenched in my fists. I needed to calm down. I needed to think. But all I could see was him. The way she had looked at him. The way she touched him. It was like someone had reached into my chest and ripped my heart out. I didn't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. Long enough for the sun to start setting. Then, I heard the front door open. Emily was home. I stood up, my entire body tense. My heart pounded as I listened to her footsteps. She moved around the kitchen, humming softly to herself. Humming. Like she hadn't just spent the afternoon with another man. Rage built inside me, thick and suffocating. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I walked out of the bedroom and down the hallway. When I reached the kitchen, she was standing by the counter, pouring herself a glass of water. She looked up, startled. Oh. Hey, babe. You're home early. Babe. She said it so casually, so effortlessly, like she hadn't just betrayed me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My voice came out cold. Where were you? Emily blinked. What? I took a step closer. I ask you a question. Where were you this afternoon? Her eyes darted away, just for a second, but I caught it. I had a work meeting downtown. Lies. I clenched my jaw. Oh? Which hotel was the meeting at? Her face paled. Got you. She forced a laugh. What are you talking about? I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped on the photo I had taken, the one of him walking into the hotel. I held the screen up for her to see. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she was struggling to form words. I can explain. I let out a bitter laugh. Explain? Go ahead, Emily. Explain why you were in a hotel room with another man. She swallowed hard. It's not what you think. That sentence. That fucking sentence. I slammed my fist onto the counter, making her jump. Don't insult me. I saw you. I saw you touching him. I saw you with him. So go on, tell me, Emily. Tell me how it's not what I think. Tears welled up in her eyes. I made a mistake. A mistake. A mistake. Like it was something small. Like she had tripped and fallen onto his dick. I let out a hollow laugh, shaking my head. How long? She bit her lip. Silence. I slammed my fist against the counter again. How long, Emily? She flinched. A few months. I closed my eyes, exhaling sharply. Months. Not once. Not a drunken one-time thing. Not a stupid, heat-of-the-moment mistake. Months. I turned away, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. My whole body was shaking. Do you love him? No, she said quickly. No, of course not. It didn't mean anything. I turned back to face her, my eyes burning. It meant something to me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her, my chest tight. Then why did you? She wiped at her face. I don't know. I was feeling lost. Like we were stuck in a routine. I didn't plan for this to happen. I just Stop. My voice was hoarse. Just stop. She choked back a sob. I want to fix this. Fix this. Like we were some broken piece of furniture. I let out a bitter laugh. You want to fix this? Tell me, Emily, how do we fix this? How do I unsee what I saw? How do I stop feeling like an idiot for trusting you? She took a step toward me. Please, Daniel. I love you. I don't want to lose you. I stepped back. You lost me the second you walked into that hotel room. Her face crumpled. No, please. I'll do anything. We can go to therapy. We can work through this. I shook my head. We didn't do anything. You did this. Her lips trembled. I was selfish. I know that. But I don't want to throw everything away. I stared at her, a painful silence stretching between us. Finally, I exhaled. I need time. Her face lit up with hope. Okay. Okay, I understand. Take as much time as you need. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. As soon as I reached the bedroom, I shut the door and locked it. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. Emily wanted to fix things. But could I ever forgive her? I didn't know. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replayed everything over and over. Emily's voice, her excuses, her pleas. The way she had looked at me with tears in her eyes, begging for another chance. A part of me wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that this was just some mistake, that she had been lost and confused and that she truly regretted it. But the other part? The part that had watched her walk into that hotel, that had seen her touching him, that part wanted nothing but revenge. By the time morning came, I had made my decision. I got out of bed, threw on some clothes, and walked out of the bedroom. Emily was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked like she hadn't slept either. She glanced up, hope flickering in her eyes. Daniel. I ignored her, grabbing my car keys. Where are you going? She asked, her voice laced with panic. I didn't answer. I just walked out the door and got into my car. I needed space. I needed air. I drove aimlessly for a while, my hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Then, without thinking, I found myself pulling into a parking lot. His parking lot. I knew where he worked. Emily had mentioned his name once or twice before. Ryan. Some asshole from her event planning company. He was one of the venue coordinators, and from what I had gathered, they had started working together more closely a few months ago. A few months ago. Right around the time our marriage started feeling different. I stepped out of the car, slamming the door shut behind me. I had no plan. No strategy. All I knew was that I needed to see him. Needed to look him in the eye. The front entrance was glass, and I could see a receptionist sitting behind a desk. I walked in, my pulse pounding in my ears. She looked up with a polite smile. Can I help you? I forced myself to stay calm. I'm here to see Ryan. She hesitated. Ryan who? I clenched my jaw. Ryan Parker. Her eyes flickered with recognition. Oh, do you have an appointment? No, I said flatly. She shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure if he's available. I'll wait. Before she could argue, the door to one of the conference rooms opened, and there he was. Ryan Parker. Tall. Well-dressed. Cocky smile. The kind of guy who had probably spent his whole life getting what he wanted without ever facing the consequences. He was laughing at something, his hand resting casually on the shoulder of a female coworker. But when his eyes met mine, the smile dropped from his face. He knew. I could see it in the way his body stiffened, the way he glanced around like he was trying to figure out if he could run. I didn't give him the chance. I walked straight up to him, stopping only a few inches away. His Adam's apple bobbed. Can I help you?" I stared at him, my voice low and dangerous. "You know who I am." He swallowed. "Look, man." I didn't let him finish. My fist connected with his jaw before he could get another word out. The sound of the impact echoed through the office. Gasps filled the air as Ryan stumbled backward, crashing into a desk. Papers flew everywhere. "Daniel!" I turned to see Emily standing near the entrance, her face pale. Of course, she had followed me. Ryan groaned, holding his jaw as he struggled to sit up. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up. "Was it worth it?" I hissed. He looked away. I didn't mean for." I shoved him back down. "I don't care what you meant." Emily rushed forward, grabbing my arm. "Daniel, stop." I turned on her, my chest heaving. "Stop? Stop? You don't get to tell me to stop, Emily. You did this." Tears streamed down her face. I know, but this won't fix anything." I exhaled sharply, my hands shaking. She was right. Beating the shit out of Ryan wouldn't erase what had happened. It wouldn't make me forget. It wouldn't undo the betrayal. It would only make me look like the fool. I let go of him, stepping back. Ryan coughed, rubbing his jaw. "You should leave," he muttered. I let out a bitter laugh. "Trust me, I'm done here." I turned and walked past Emily without another word. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to a bar. I sat in a dark corner, nursing a whiskey, my mind spinning. I had thought hitting Ryan would make me feel better. That it would give me some sense of justice. But it hadn't. It hadn't changed anything. By the time I walked through the front door of our house, it was past midnight. Emily was sitting on the couch, still in the same clothes from earlier. She stood when she saw me. "Daniel." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I don't want to fight anymore." She swallowed. "Me neither." Silence stretched between us. Finally, I sat down on the couch, exhausted. "I don't know what to do, Emily." She hesitated, then sat down beside me. Do you still love me?" I let out a slow breath. Did I? Could I? I looked at her, really looked at her. She was my wife. The woman I had built a life with. The woman I had once trusted with everything. But now she was also the woman who had betrayed me. "I don't know," I admitted. She flinched, but nodded. "I understand." More silence. Then she whispered, "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." I closed my eyes. Could we fix this? Was there anything left to fix? Or was this the beginning of the end? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind replayed the events of the day like a broken film reel, each frame more unbearable than the last. Emily's voice, trembling. Ryan's face, bloodied. My own reflection in the rearview mirror, a stranger staring back at me. I wasn't the man I had been yesterday. I wasn't the husband I had been last week. Everything had changed. At some point, exhaustion took over, and when I opened my eyes, the room was bathed in early morning light. I felt like I had aged 10 years overnight. Emily was still in bed beside me, curled up with her back to me. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember what it used to feel like waking up next to her. The warmth. The familiarity. Now, all I felt was distance. A chasm had formed between us, and I didn't know if I had the strength or the desire to bridge it. Carefully, I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen, needing coffee, needing something to keep my hands busy. My head was pounding, and my thoughts were tangled in a million directions. As I stood there, watching the coffee drip, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around. Emily's voice was hesitant. "You didn't leave." I finally glanced over my shoulder. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in the same robe she had worn for years, the one I had bought her on our 5th anniversary. It didn't feel right on her anymore. I turned back to my coffee. "I didn't leave yet." Silence. Then, softly, "Can we talk?" I exhaled through my nose. "Yeah." We sat across from each other at the dining table, the same table where we had eaten dinner together thousands of times. The same table where, just last month, she had laughed at one of my dumb jokes. The same table where she had sat, texting him, while I had been blissfully unaware. I leaned forward, elbows on the surface, fingers laced together. "Tell me the truth, Emily." She swallowed. I cut her off with a sharp shake of my head. "The real truth. No half explanations. No sugarcoating. If you want me to even consider staying, I need to hear everything." Her lips trembled, but she nodded. "Okay." I braced myself. She licked her lips, as if trying to figure out where to start. "It wasn't planned," she said softly. "I never set out to cheat on you. I never thought I would. But I don't know, Daniel. Somewhere along the way, I felt like we had stopped seeing each other." I clenched my jaw. "Bullshit." Her eyes widened. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "That's the excuse everyone uses, isn't it?" Oh, I felt invisible, so I spread my legs for another man. She flinched, pain flashing across her face. "That's not fair." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Fair? Fair? You want to talk about fair, Emily? Because I don't think it was fair that I spent 12 years being a loyal husband while you were off having hotel meetups with another man." Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't going to let them sway me. "Not this time. I felt like we were stuck in the same routine," she said, voice small. "Like we had become roommates instead of a couple. And Ryan, he made me feel wanted." My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream. To rage. But I forced myself to stay calm. "So you chose him over me?" "No," she said quickly. "It wasn't like that. I never stopped loving you, Daniel. I swear, I didn't. But I made a stupid, selfish mistake, and I hate myself for it." I studied her carefully. She looked broken. But was it guilt for what she did? Or guilt for getting caught? I ran a hand down my face, exhaustion settling in my bones. "So, what do you want, Emily?" She hesitated. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear her, she whispered, "I want to fix this." I laughed. It was bitter, empty. "Fix this?" I gestured between us. "How, Emily? How do we fix this?" She leaned forward, desperation in her eyes. "Counseling. Time. Effort. Whatever it takes. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I need to try. We need to try." I shook my head. "You needed to try before you opened your legs for someone else." She inhaled sharply. "Daniel, please." "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, my voice quieter now. "I don't know if I can ever look at you again without seeing him. Without wondering if you're thinking about him when you touch me." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I don't want him. I only want you." I exhaled slowly, my throat tight. Did I believe her? Could I? I stared at the woman I had once thought I would grow old with. The woman I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. And I realized something. Even if I wanted to forgive her, I didn't know if I could. I stood up. She looked up at me, panic flickering in her expression. "Where are you going?" I picked up my keys. "I need time." Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Time for what? To figure out if I even want to fight for this, I said honestly. Her face crumpled. You do. I know you do. I sighed. You don't know me as well as you think you do, Emily. And then I walked out the door. I drove aimlessly for hours, thoughts swirling. Emily wanted to fix this. But could I? Did I even want to? I pulled into a small diner on the outskirts of town, needing space. I sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, and stared out the window. Somewhere in my pocket, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. For the first time in days, I let myself just breathe. Maybe I would go back home. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would forgive her. Maybe I couldn't. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just hurt, it changes you. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me in the bathroom mirror of the diner. Bloodshot eyes. Unshaven face. Hollow expression. I was exhausted. Mentally. Emotionally. Completely drained. Emily had begged for another chance, but I had walked out. Not because I had made up my mind, but because I hadn't. And that was the worst part of all. I had spent 12 years thinking I knew my wife. Thinking I understood the kind of person she was. Then, in one moment, it all collapsed. The trust. The love. The future I had imagined. Gone. A waitress tapped my shoulder, snapping me out of my thoughts. Hey, hun. You okay? I blinked. I must have been standing in front of the mirror for a while. I nodded stiffly, muttering a quick, yeah. Thanks. I walked back to my booth and checked my phone. 12 missed calls from Emily. 3 from her sister. 1 from Ryan. My stomach twisted at the sight of his name. I opened the text. Ryan Parker, hey, man. I just want to talk. Call me when you can. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. That motherfucker had some nerve. I tapped out a quick response. Me, go fuck yourself. I shut my phone off before he could reply. Ryan Parker wasn't my problem anymore. Emily was. And I still didn't know what the hell to do about her. I drove around aimlessly for most of the day, trying to clear my head. It didn't work. Everything reminded me of her. The small coffee shop where we used to grab breakfast on weekends. The park where we had walked hand in hand, talking about our future. Even the damn gas station, because I remembered how she would always forget to fill her tank and call me to do it for her. My whole life was wrapped up in this woman. So how the hell was I supposed to walk away? But at the same time, how the hell was I supposed to stay? By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun had already set. Emily must have been watching from the window because as soon as I shut the car door, the front door swung open. She stood there, face pale, eyes swollen from crying. Daniel. I didn't say anything. I walked past her and straight into the house. I heard her close the door behind me, then the hesitant sound of her footsteps following me into the living room. You came back, she whispered. I sat down on the couch, resting my elbows on my knees. For now. She swallowed hard. Did you make a decision? I exhaled slowly. No. Her face crumpled. Daniel, please. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this. I stared at the floor, my voice hollow. I don't think you can. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you. I never stopped loving you. I clenched my jaw. Funny way of showing it. She let out a soft sob, pressing a hand to her mouth. I know. I know, and I hate myself for it. I wake up every morning wishing I could take it back. I looked up at her, and for the first time, I saw it. Not just guilt. Fear. Emily wasn't just afraid of losing me. She was afraid of what came next. Afraid of being alone. I ran a hand down my face. Why, Emily? She let out a shaky breath. Because I was stupid. Because I let myself be selfish. Because I let the thrill of something new convince me that our love wasn't enough anymore. Her voice cracked on that last word. Enough. I had never once questioned if she was enough for me. But she had questioned it about me. I leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes. Did you ever love me? She gasped. Daniel, of course, I did. I still do. I never stopped. I opened my eyes, looking at her. Then why wasn't it enough? She broke into another sob, sinking onto the couch beside me. I don't know. I don't know, and I hate myself for it. I let out a humorless chuckle. Yeah. Well. That makes two of us. We sat there in silence. I could feel her looking at me, waiting for some kind of answer. Waiting for me to tell her I would forgive her. That I would stay. But the truth was, I didn't know. I didn't know if I could ever touch her again without feeling sick. I didn't know if I could look at her without picturing her with him. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. Finally, I spoke. I don't have an answer for you, Emily. Her hands trembled in her lap. Are you leaving? I inhaled sharply. Then, slowly, I shook my head. I don't know. A sob burst from her lips. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to prove to you that I'm still the woman you fell in love with. I looked at her, my chest aching. That woman, I said quietly, wouldn't have done this to me. She let out a broken cry, collapsing against me. Please, Daniel. Please don't leave me. I stiffened. I didn't hug her back. I didn't pull away, either. I just sat there, staring at the wall, letting her cry into my chest. I wanted to comfort her. But I also wanted to never touch her again. That was when I realized the truth. It didn't matter how much she cried. It didn't matter how much she begged. It didn't matter how much I loved her. Some things can't be fixed. Maybe I wouldn't leave tonight. Maybe I wouldn't leave tomorrow. But one day soon, I would. Because deep down, I already knew. I could never forgive her. And no amount of apologies could change that.